Hello, Tubby and Coos fans. It's me, Candace, back with another author event that I am so super excited to have. I know I say that every time, but it's just true every time. I'm very excited about this author event because we are celebrating a book called Wings of Ebony, which has recently hit the New York Times bestseller list. And if you haven't read it, you really should. We still have signed copies left. So grab a signed copy while you can. But that's what we're celebrating today. We have author Elle, who is the author of this New York Times bestselling book. She's a prolific Black author and advocate for marginalized voices, both in publishing and in her community. Wings of Ebony is her debut novel, and it is the first in a duology. It's about a Black girl from a poor neighborhood who learns she's magical. It's literal Black girl magic. And also, JL has worked as an editorial intern at PS Literary Agency and Gelfman ICM Partners. She served as a mentor for both Pitch Wars and Author Mentor Match. She is the founder and co-host of #Monday Mixer, which is a Twitter chat to engage writers on the platform with networking opportunities and writing questions and encouragement. And she also does in her spare time, she does a lot of like cooking and stuff. And so she has roots here in Louisiana, which maybe she'll tell you a little bit about. And today, talking with her, we have two amazing people that I'm super excited about. The first is Daniel José Older. He has been with us before. I talk about him all the time. Y'all all know him, but he's the New York Times bestselling author of Flood City, which is his most recent middle grade book that just came out earlier this month. He also wrote The Dactyl Hill Squad, The Book of Lost Saints, The Shadow Shaper Cipher, Star Wars Last Shot. He's writing for High Republic, and he just announced a big deal with Rick Riordan, Ballad and Dagger, which I'm super excited about. So I'm really happy to have him back. And we have Big Freedia, who I'm super, super excited is here with us today. And she is, of course, the queen of bounce music, a New Orleans-based hip-hop artist and worldwide ambassador for bounce music. And she had a reality show and a docuseries that followed the life of a choir boy turned bounce rapper. She also caught the attention of iconic artists like Beyonce and Drake. She was featured on Beyonce's Grammy-winning single Formation and on Drake's Nice for What. She released a Third Ward Bounce, which is one of her critically acclaimed records. And also she has an ice cream flavor. She was on Jimmy Kimmel Live. She's just been everywhere and is amazing. And we're so happy. And she also has a book. She's the author of a memoir, Big Freedia, God Save the Queen Diva. So welcome to all of these amazing people. I'm so excited to have y'all here today. Hello, hello. And I think we lost Freedia, but hopefully she'll be back in a minute. So I will let y'all talk for a minute. And if Freedia comes back, then I'll put her back on.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.
Look what I grabbed.
Hey, Flood City!
I was walking through Barnes & Noble to sign some exclusive editions of Wings.
Nice.
And this is the section my kids are always in because that's the age range they read.
Right.
And so I was walking by and I was like, oh, that's a pretty cover. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like,
I know that
that's my friend. And I was like, I'm buying this. So it's always fun, like when you see a book by someone you know.
Big Freedia's back.
Yes, I'm back. I don't know what happened, y'all. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So how are we going to kick this off?
Well, I thought it'd be fun to talk about sort of our connections to Louisiana to start, because that is why I was so excited about this event, because Tubby and Coos is in Louisiana, which is so much of my heart and my roots. You want to kick it off? Tell us about your connection to Louisiana, to New Orleans and Louisiana. You live there, right?
Me?
Both of you.
Oh, wait. Who are you talking to? Which of us?
You.
Freedia, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm born and raised in New Orleans. Louisiana is definitely a big connection to my backgrounds and my upbringing. I love my city a whole lot, and I have been Blessed to be in the music game here. I represent the culture of bounce music, and my role has been being the ambassador. I have been able to take bounce music all around the world and make people, shake their ass, if you it may say. So I'm happy to be from Louisiana and represent. I represent the boo very well.
That's what's up. First, I want to say it's really an honor to be here with both of y'all. Icons.
Same.
Icons. Thank you for sharing the platform with me. For me, let's see. I've lived in New Orleans for 3 years now, but it's always had my heart. I've been coming here since I was a teenager. I fell in love with it the first time I stepped foot here, and it's just, I know it's like kind of a cliche, but really something has been calling me since I first came, and I finally picked up the phone basically and was like, you know what the hell am I doing in New York City? This is ridiculous. And I'm just so happy. I love it here so much. It feels like home. I've come here in some of the hardest moments of my life, and it's always embraced me and treated me like its son. And so that's why I live here, because it loves me back. And it's just really good to be here. What about you, Jay?
So most of my family is from Louisiana. So when I trace my roots back, I don't get very far, just to my parents. They're all from all over Louisiana, and it's where we would visit in summers growing up. I actually haven't been back in a long time, but our roots there are deep, deep. My grandpa is president of the homecoming committee in his little parish.
Okay.
Summer and we are deep in our area, all over too, Lafayette and New Orleans and Lake Charles and Opelousas and really all over. But I just have the fondest memories of visiting, and so it's a big part of my heart, and it's a big part of, I think, kind of what you were saying, both of you were saying, is that there's this, it just oozes community in a really powerful way that I feel is just soothing to the soul. And a lot of what I did in Wings of Ebony was make the community, the setting, which is set in Houston, but the setting is very much a character, and community is very central to the story. And I just think that New Orleans embodies that. I feel that's just who it is.
It definitely is. It definitely is an open community. A lot of times you can be a complete stranger and you come here and people will open arms and make you feel welcome. A stranger will help you, right off the bat. So New Orleans is definitely that community driven city. I think that we are definitely a family orientated city as well, where a lot of our families come together and do things together, and we go through things together here. That's what makes us so tough.
That's true. It also feels like a very Caribbean city to me. It's the only place in the States where it really reminds me of Cuba in a real way. And that's where my mom's side of the family is from. And I know people talk about Miami a lot and Little Havana, but it's New Orleans that really feels like Cuba to me. Spirit, community, the folks, the music, that's really the essence of it. And yeah, Jay, in your book, you do feel that love of city, love of community. And to me, that's what sets it aside from a lot of urban fantasies that don't seem to love the city that they're set in. You ever read a book and you're like, you don't, not only do you not know this place, you might hate it.
Really though.
And I'm like, why would you even write about a place you don't like that much unless you really write about it to take it down? But it's a powerful thing. But I think city really grounds us, and place really grounds us. And I know that's true for your music, Big Freedia.
Most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. I mean, that's what makes all the great hits, all the stuff that I see in New Orleans, the experience that I experience in New Orleans. A lot of times when I go to different places, and being that I'm an artist, people always why you haven't moved? Why you haven't left New Orleans? Because I love New Orleans. I travel all around the world. Why do I need to leave when I'm usually gone most of the time? So I need that place of home, and New Orleans is home.
That's real.
And that is exactly, I think, how Rue feels in Wings of Ebony. Because and I'm trying to keep it spoiler free, but in the beginning of the book, she's pulled from home.
Right.
And the entire, and home is the hood. Home is auntie and cousin and all of this family that is really, it's neighborhood, but it's family, it's community. And I think that narrative just pumps through communities like New Orleans and communities like mine, where I'm from in Houston. And I think that like it was very intentional that in my book, Rue, the entire time, like what you're saying, Freedia, is like Rue wants to get back home. She's trying to be home. And the world might see her home as this place that's undesirable, but Rue sees her home as everything.
Yeah.
It's what keeps her grounded, is what keeps her rooted. And I think that
same here.
It's just, like it's that reality. And I'm hoping with Wings of Ebony, when people read my book, if they haven't been to a place like where we're fortunate enough to be in a place where our community loves on us and our home is just this togetherness place, like New Orleans, like Houston, like I'm hoping that it's a window into those communities and sort of they can see sort of this togetherness that sort of links us by shared experience and just like this whole energy and vibe in the place. Like when you were talking about how you can show up in New Orleans and people are going to help you out even if they don't know you, like that is very much sort of the environment that I wanted to paint in my book. It's just a place full of love, and I think that it's a powerful experience. Like I understand why you live there, Daniel, because it's like it's dope.
I mean, it's also a writer's city, right? It's an artist city. Like it's a place where it embraces people. It embraces everybody, really. But really, like if you're an artist, if you're a creative person, like you just walk down those streets and they're talking to you, and the people, the people talking to you,
Daniel. They're hollering out the window.
Yeah.
They're hollering from across the street. They're hollering everywhere at you.
People live their lives like out in the open and like out loud for real. It's not that quiet. And like I said, I'm from the North. So it's like I'm from Boston and I lived in New York for 14 years. So it's a very different world, except for the Southern transplants over there, but like, and the Caribbean folks. But for the most part, up North, it's like people cold and they keep to themselves or standoffish. And I can get down with standoffish, but it's so different. Like for a while when I was first down here, people would be saying hello and asking me how I was and mean it.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's amazing.
For real. Just the other day, look, make y'all laugh real quick. The other day, our Mayor Cantrell was doing a press conference. In the middle of the press conference, there's somebody hollering, Mayor Cantrell! And she like, hey, baby, in the middle of the press conference. Yep. So that's how we get down,
That's how it should be.
I love it.
It was so funny.
The joy is just tangible. And I know that, like, I was talking to, you and I share a publicist, was talking to Marissa about this, but she was telling me how important it is for you, like giving back to the community is a huge part, like family community is a huge part of the things that you love, Freedia, and the work that you do for the community. She was just telling me how you're very much a pillar in that way and a role model for so many. And I think that, too, I feel like your book sort of hints at that as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it's all about the community, and the community is what supports us, and and they carry us through like good times and bad times. And New Orleans have definitely been my biggest supporters in everything that I have done. I grew up here. It's my background. They know me like I know them, and so the community has helped carry me and push me in many different ways. And I'm just happy that it feels and reminds you of family. You know what I'm saying? Even your extended family, it reminds you each time when you're here in New Orleans.
And I love that you said they push you too, because I feel like that's such an essential piece of it that we forget sometimes, that community isn't just yes men, right?
No, it's not.
They're like, oh yeah, you're doing great. Do whatever you're doing. Just keep doing it. Like, that's bullshit. You're like, that's not actually helpful, right? But like, it's what you just said. It's true in Wings of Ebony. Like you can see it in the characters and the way they check each other out of love. That community is there for you when you are messing up too, to be like, whoa, bring it in. Let's have this real conversation, instead of those people who are just like, yeah, keep going. Like that's a lie, right? Community doesn't lie to you. Not like when it's really.
Oh no, they're gonna give it to you real. They're gonna give you the real. They're gonna have the people that's gonna give you the yes mans and the okays, and they got the people that's gonna give you the grit and the bad and the constructive criticism. You have a little bit of all of it. And you have certain people that push you to go further and to do stuff and to want to accomplish. So it just depends on the setting and the people and the energy that you bring around you. And Jay, I got your book as well last week. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm definitely waiting to read it starting this weekend once I get a little break of all the work.
I had a question. I was wondering how y'all figure out, because I know Freedia, you moved from you're known for music, right? But now you have a book out and you worked on that book. And then Jay, do you do music at all?
No, I mean, not well. You
Right.
should probably try if I was singing, but I do like to sing, but just
Right. I feel like you got other skills up your sleeve.
I do, creative skills. I was a professional photographer for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I can draw a little bit, but I don't usually show that to anybody.
Yeah, drawing was actually my first love as a kid. I always had a notepad and a pen with me. And then I did music for a while in my 20s, and then prose really felt like that's where it was at for me. But I'm curious about y'all, like what's it like switching over from one kind of format into another?
Well, go ahead, Jay.
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, for me, I love it because it gives you an opportunity to open your mind and do different things. And, you know, for a long time, I like to do different things. I started in gospel music. Now I'm doing bounce music and all different type of music that I want to do. I also been creative in decorating and interior design. So I step into different fields. And Jay, I know you can cook. I can cook as well. You know,
I can't wait for this to get together.
Yeah, we making this happen.
Wait.
and cooking is a big part of my background as well. My aunt and my mother were great cooks. My grandmother. And so I was able to be blessed to pick up the skills in my hands to bring that true, authentic New Orleans flavor to the table. And I love to make people happy. I love to host and give events. So I'm always in that kitchen throwing something together, and they'd be like, I can't wait to go over there. So they're knocking at my door every day trying to see what I'm cooking.
No, I love that. And so 2 things that pops in my head to your point, or actually 3, Daniel. It's interesting that you do music and words, because I feel like to a degree, like prose is lyrical, right? Like it has a cadence to it.
Yes.
And there is this beautiful synergy between like when musicians write words and when, authors like sing or compose music. I see that, I feel like, in both of you. But in terms of like, for me, I actually think it's fun because my expression of one form of art can actually sort of like push my expression in another form of art. So I was surprised when I was learning to write how being a photographer taught me how to deepen sort of like setting the scene in my book. Because as a photographer, I'm constantly, like you're composing the shot, figuring out what you want in that rectangle.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly thinking about what is the image going to be in my head. And so when I approach a scene where it's just words on the page and there's no visual, I'm like, okay, well, how do I want to paint this scene? What imagery do I want to paint to compose this shot, so to speak? And so it's really interesting to see how different art forms can influence one another.
Oh, most definitely. I always use my decorating skills. I could just walk in a room and I start looking up of how can I change the room and what could I put here and what could I put there. So I use my decorating skills a lot within my music, just setting scenes, like you said, setting the scene up. Yeah, just setting the different scenes up of what I want to see visually. Also, when I'm thinking of songs, I'm always thinking of branding. What type of merchandise can go behind it? And so, like, I start thinking of like right off the black. I think if I say platinum, like my new single, I'm starting to think about diamonds and silver and shiny and everything that's dealing with platinum. So I feel you when you say different art forms connect each other and push you in a different direction with other things you're doing.
Totally. I think for me, it's like it's rhythm, like you said. Like prose and music is really so connected, and I always say this to my students when I do workshops, whatever. Like writing, even prose, like the written word, it goes back to the spoken word, no matter what. And I feel like we lose track of that amidst all the like Microsoft Word shit and publishing and copy edits and all that nonsense gets in our head, and we forget that at the end of the day, we're storytellers. Like whether it's on a stage rapping, whether it's, like putting words down on a page, whatever it is, we're storytellers. And it goes back to folks telling stories from the beginning of time to each other. Gossip on the corner, bochinche, as we say, like at the peluqueria, like everywhere. Like that's storytelling. That's what we're doing. And I always say, like, I take as much inspiration from like, you know, my friends and family, the folks around the corner at the bodega, whatever, as I do from the great works of literature. And for me, like, music is the connective tissue there, you know, like, because it's sound. And,
Yes.
and the way that we talk is musical. The way that we express love, the way that we tell gossip on the corner, that's all music.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just becomes music that, how do you get that onto the page? How do you find silences, you know, that make sense in the text? And how do you find like gravity? You know how, like, you know, when a great paragraph just like lands?
Yes.
Like it carries you all the way to the bottom of it, and then it just lands. You gotta stop and take a breath. Like,
yeah,
you know, that's music. That's
that, right? Like, and I don't write music, but like Freedia, you probably, like, you know, like I feel like sometimes you just get like this certain section of the song, whether it's the chorus or whatever, and it just slaps. Like it's like perfection in verse, in song.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fun process, you know, figuring out the right wording that needs to go in the right place, or what, you know, the message you're trying to get out, and finding that word, you know. So you're sitting there and you're throwing out these 1,000 words, you know, and which one gonna fit in that spot. So you have to keep re-singing the song until that right word connects with it. So it's a fun process too. It's also learning lots of words and being creative in so many different directions. I love it.
Mm-hmm. And it's super collaborative, right? I think we all have that in common too. Like, people don't think of writing as collaborative, but like, you're working with an editor, you're working with your other readers who read the book, you know, you're working with a team, like all that. And I know that's true for you, Freedia. Like, you know, you got your musicians, you got like the producers, like everyone's coming together to do the work. It's not solitary.
No, it's definitely a collaborative effort.
No, I agree. And back to the food, because, you know, I always want to talk about food.
You're hungry. I'm hungry too, girl.
Can I just say, if we was doing this in person, literally we would be over a bowl of gumbo as we chat. Okay.
Gumbo, crawfish, I'll cook you anything you want.
Oh man.
I know. Come on, pandemic, go away. But no, like, when I think about food, this is actually a big thing in my book. And when you all were talking about having that person that pushes you, in Wings of Ebony, there's a character, Miss Leola, right? And she's like everybody's grandma character, or auntie next door, or that lady in the neighborhood that's always looking out for you to make sure you make it home. And if your door is locked when you get home from school, you can come in her house and she gonna feed you. Like, that's this character, Miss Leola, and she is the pusher for Rue. Like, she is the one who tells Rue, first of all, she loves on her with food. And there's a certain edition of my book that actually has a copy of a pound cake, my grandmother's top secret pound cake recipe in the back.
Okay.
And I had to beg for that because she has not come off it.
I love that.
Like, she was like, no, like, this is secret. This is the family. This is my mama's. No. But she came off it. But my point is that there's a lot of food in my book. And I'll never forget, I had an early reader reading my book before it was published, before it even sold, and she was giving me feedback, and she doesn't come from like a community like mine. And she was just kind of like, it's really weird that your character is like in this very serious moment and very sad, and this person wants to make her sit down and eat. And she was like, I just want distraction. And I'm like, well, what do you do when you're sad? That's what I do. Like, that is how we love on each other. Say, baby, come get a plate and tell me all about it.
Yes,
right?
Yes, honey. Yes.
Let's
talk about it over some food.
Food is always in my book. In fact, I have a middle grade book coming out next year, which is an inner city magic school book. It's about a magic school in the back of a beauty shop. And it's really cute, but like, food always plays a role in my book. So if you pull up to a JL page, know that there will be food to be had. And it's usually going to be oxtails and some collards.
Yes.
And pound cake. And look, the food descriptions in my book.
Oh my God, I'm hungry.
Now we're also hungry. Like, I had that feedback, but it wasn't about food, although food does. Yes, absolutely. I second that. But no, it's about the way that we kind of take the shit out of each other sometimes in the middle of crisis too. And there's a part in Shadow Shaper where they're like going through some real heavy shit and they're all messed up about it. And they're like, yo, and you know, this and that. And then someone just like cuts someone else, you know, like verbally. It's just like, whatcha? And everyone's like, oh, and like, to me, it made so much sense because that's what folks do, you know, like that. Sometimes that's how you relieve the tension, is like, you got to just like get on each other a little bit. Yeah. And then everybody's like, okay, we're cool. Like, laughter is a very important part of healing. And not everybody feels that way. Like, I remember getting a note where they were like, why are they joking around right now? This is a serious moment.
You're like, I think too, like so with one of my side characters, he's full of like pop culture references and he's just hysterical. And that's part of the reason, like my book deals with gritty topics, like it's racism and allyship and privilege and colonization. But then you also have Julius over here trying to keep his shoes clean and like trying to figure out if he should wear a fedora on the island or a zip up hoodie, no shirt, like which piece of chain should he wear? Like I layer in
important questions.
These are
very, very.
So I try to layer in the humor for that exact reason, because I mean, I wrote the book mostly for teens and they're coming to these pages and there are some weightier topics there, but I want them to have a good time too. I want them to laugh. I want it to inspire joy, because that's what we're doing. We're writing for kids. And Freedia, I know like kids are very important to you. Mercy's talking about how much you do for youth. If you want to talk, don't you have like it's a nonprofit, right? That you used to like pour into kids.
Yeah, Bounce Up. And I work with several organizations here in New Orleans to help different kids. You know, the kids are the future. And, you know, a lot of times growing up, we didn't have so many opportunities in the neighborhood that we are trying to create new opportunities for our kids and keep them out of trouble. Church was my safe haven back then. That was my scapegoat for my mom to keep me safe out of the neighborhood that I grew up and seeing so much. And so now we are trying to create just more opportunities and help them in any way that we can. You know, I have one organization that we feed the kids. They get daily meals. All they have to do is text a phone number. And if they are hungry, they will drop the meals off no matter how many kids are in the house. Wow. And we will do that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's amazing. And, you know, also work with some other different dance organizations that help different kids, all different type of kids, every walk of life. You know, just really trying to continue to create opportunities for children that I didn't have, and to give them, you know, a little bit light at the tunnel, knowing that somebody cares and that we're trying to look out for them in the best way that's possible.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
It is. So cool. It is. And I love that all of our work in different ways centers on pouring into kids, you know, because they really are. They are up to the plate next. Like this is their world, you know, and so we're pouring into them.
Jay, I wanted to ask you, like, first of all, I love your book, and I feel like that needs to be said. I blurbed it, and I mean it when I blurb something. I have a very hard time.
Would you like to share your blurb, or should I read it?
You read it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
A remarkable, breathtaking, earth-shaking, poetic thrill ride, bristling with magic, life, and so much love. Rue and her incredible adventures will change the world.
I give good blurb.
You do. That shook me in the best possible way.
It's true. It's true. I'm literally unable to blurb something that I don't actually feel that way about. I get stopped in my tracks. So I really mean it. I love that book. It's an amazing achievement and an incredible book. So yes, I just wanted to say that first. Second, I love how it feels like a counter narrative in a lot of ways, even as it stands very much on its own, in its own, you know, its own 2 feet and wings, and it's an adventure, and there's so much that it does. But I also felt like it explicitly is like, we're not going to do that bullshit. We're going to do this good shit. And I was just wondering, like, because I also approach things, I try to balance that when I write. You know, there's always a part of me that's like bristling about how pop culture depicts, you know, lots of different folks that we call our own. And so it's like I write against those stereotypes, and I also write to just do our own creative good stuff, whatever that might be. And so it's like, how do you find the balance, you know, between writing counter narratives and saying no, but also really saying like, yes, but this is the good stuff that I want to share with y'all?
You know, that's a good question. I think a lot of Wings of Ebony is just sort of, you know, a lot of just trusting my instincts and my heart. It was very important for me for Rue to not be like another character I'd seen. I didn't want Rue to be reminiscent of, oh, I really like this really famous character, but I'm going to make them my own. Rue was going to be like pieces of me, pieces of my home. Rue was going to be who she was, regardless of what publishing had to say about it. And I think that staying true to who she is, her pain, her joy, the way she sees the world, her experience, her identity, all of it, I think is sort of what grounded me in the narrative in terms of choosing what to include, how to include it, and what not. Because I would just always go back to the heart of who Rue is and what Rue cares about and who her community is. And I think, you know, I'm hoping I can do this again in another way, but in a lot of ways, Wings is so unique in that so much that the neighborhood in the book is called East Row, and it's modeled after Third Ward here. And so much of that is so my home that it's almost cheating in a way, because it's like I could write so authentically from this place because this place is me. Rue is me. Rue is my cousin and my sister and my auntie and like the people down the block. And so I think that led to sort of like I felt a duty to be authentic to Rue. And I think that I let her character guide me a lot on the page. And then I think in terms of like the broader narrative and side characters and themes and stuff, I realized halfway through the book that for Rue to tell her full story, which is sort of this unflinching, you know, butt up against racism, I couldn't just talk about racism. I was going to have to talk about all the things peripherally related to racism. And I was going to have to talk about them in a very honest way. And so it sort of lended itself to sort of, okay, this is the story I'm trying to tell, but this is the story I need to tell. These are the things I need to say. And so again, I let Rue sort of take charge, and she has a friendship with Bree, who's she's like a white character. She's not Black. She's in the book, they're called grays, but they're like, you read them as like white people basically. And, you know, when I realized that Bree had this really close friendship with this white girl, and the book is very much about racism, I was like, okay, so now we have to talk about privilege, and now we have to talk about allyship. And like, I will be honest with you, when I was in the weeds of writing that draft, I remember feeling like, what am I doing? Like, this is getting deep. Yep. Like, I thought I was just writing an adventure, and Rue is like, no, you are writing my story and my pain, and this is part of it. And so, I mean, I was very intimidated, to be honest, but I wrote what I thought was true. And then I you know how when you finish the first draft, you look down and you're like, okay, what is this mess? How do I make it better? And I realized that what I was doing was trying to inspire a movement, not only of kids believing in themselves, but a conversation around, you know, look at the world, this is unacceptable. And this was in 2018.
Well, it's still happening. It's perfect timing. It is perfect timing for what's going on right now in the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, you know, we do stuff and we don't know what direction it's really going in, but everything has a perfect timing, I feel like.
That's right. That's right. This book, Flood City, which came out last week, I wrote it 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's about floods covering the whole world and the last city left on Earth after happened.
10 years ago?
10 years ago. It was like right after Shadow Shaper, and then I wrote another book, and Shadow Shaper was getting rejected everywhere. No one wanted to publish it. And so I was just like, well, I ain't got nothing else to do. Let me write another book. Shit. So I wrote Flood City. No one wanted to publish that either. Still didn't want to publish it. I finally sold it to Scholastic. And then pretty soon after that, I was like, hey, I have this series about dinosaurs during the Civil War. Do y'all want that too? And they were like, oh, yes. In fact, we'll do 3 of those, and we'll push Flood City later. So, But to Freedia's point, everything has its time. And this is when it was supposed to drop. So
I believe that. I do believe that.
That moment that you were just talking about is so deep with the creative process and fear. You know, like I know we have all had that moment where you're just like,
oh, yes.
Yeah. Freedia, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, I definitely went through all those emotions, you know, especially in the process of writing an autobiography about my life and how I grew up, and, you know, just telling some really deep stuff that, you know, nobody really knew about me, and, you know, about my friends and family and some of the old stories. So I had all those moments. I was going back and forth with my publicist, you know, me and her, you know, reliving all these moments, opening cans of worms that I didn't really want to revisit. But it also was therapeutic for me, writing this book and being able to see it on paper and to see some of the things that I went through and some of the adversities that I hurdled over. So the process was a good process, even through all the different emotions.
Word. Yeah, I feel like it's like on one level, that's how you know you're doing it right, is because it's not comfortable and it really shakes you to your core. And on the other level, you also still have to, like, we as the artists still have to make decisions about our own boundaries and what we share with the world.
Oh, yeah.
And there's different kinds of discomfort, right? Because there's discomfort that's like, yeah, that's uncomfortable because the world don't need to know that shit about you. And then there's discomfort that's like, this is like that really good core work that like is helpful to the world and to me to share. And like they feel different, but like learning how to distinguish between those two things, that's a process, man.
It is, because certain things I was like, we're not putting that in there.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Not that at all. Not at all.
Yeah. I think like as an artist, like each project kind of demands that you grow as a human to complete it. And it turns you into the artist that you need to be. Like that process. That's why that process is so sacred to me, like the creative process, and it's not just like one, it's like all of them. Every single book changes you. Every single song changes you. Like everything you do changes you. And by the end of it, you have, by necessity, stepped into the role as the writer, as the artist that you needed to be in order to complete it. And there's no other process like that. Like there's nothing like that in the world. That's why I love it.
Same.
True story.
I feel like I feel like it was very cathartic finishing this book, and like all of the muck that it forced me to sort of sit and like look at and then pick and choose which muck was gonna, like, what am I gonna put in the book and deal with in front of the world, and like what am I gonna deal with on my own. But it was a very cathartic experience writing, and I think I see that in like all of our art, that we, our art is a place that we go for reprieve, for joy, but then also like for the world and what it's gonna do.
I really love that privilege piece, in the book. Like it was really beautifully done. I thought it really spoke to me. I was like, because one thing is, first of all, just as a person with privilege, on multiple levels, I read it and was like, it's so good to see this conversation happening in the pages of a book. Yes, it doesn't even happen enough in fiction, period. But it definitely doesn't happen enough in fantasy, right? Like fantasy, and I feel like, what about those fantasy kids? Me, when I was a kid, I wasn't reading I was reading some nonfiction, but I certainly wasn't reading any like contemporary. That just wasn't my thing when I was a kid. And so like, I just would have missed all those conversations. I mean, literature wasn't even having that conversation when I was a kid. So there's that. But even when it started to, it tends to be in the pages of like books about the here and now with no magical aspects whatsoever. So for me, it's like always, every time I see that like fantasy steps up, when a fantasy book steps up and has this difficult conversation, it warms my little nerd heart. You know what I mean? Because those kids need they need that conversation too.
Well, go ahead, Freedia.
I was just about to say, in every world, they need that conversation.
Exactly.
And there's something beautifully powerful about taking the fantastical, the magical, and putting tough conversations next to it, because then you're not limiting the reader's imagination to sort of solutions they can think of. Like sometimes they can't draw a conclusion in that moment. Sometimes that book needs to sit on their heart for a few years. It needs to grow legs and sprout into other things. And so sometimes all you need them to see through those pages is, this is a problem in the real world and I am magic. And if there are only two takeaways in that moment, that's all you needed. You just you water that, you nourish it, you let it grow. Mm-hmm. So I love to mix. That's why contemporary fantasy was particularly attractive to me, because I like to have those harder conversations, but I like to make sure that there's magic to marry it to.
Yeah, exactly. Freedia, you think you'd ever write a fantasy book?
I don't know. I mean, you just never know. I probably would. I would love to tell a fantasy. Yes.
I could see it.
I definitely would love to tell a fantasy. I think I can do it.
You could.
Definitely. No question. No question.
And I just feel like there's such a beautiful, I feel like the space I'm writing in, and I feel like, Daniel, you've been in this market a lot longer than I have.
Just 6 years, really.
Yes. But I feel like 1 year of publishing, granted my debut year was 2020, which was like a decade long. Yes. But I just feel like 1 year of publishing, I just feel like such a newbie. But like I do think this space, like this inner city sort of urban fantasy, magical, like, you know, marginalized kids at the center, like it just feels like this box we have only tipped the lid on.
That's right.
And I'm so excited to fill that box with more and more stories, with Freedia's magical stories.
Yes.
No pressure, but come on.
All right. I'm gonna put that on my radar now.
Well, these kids need these books, you know what I mean? And like, you shouldn't have to keep reading The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in school.
Right, man. Right. And so, you know, 6 years I've been like publishing in the major publishing world, whatever. But I was writing for 4 years before that in terms of like really trying to get that work out. And again, like not like Shadow Shaper got no traction, you know, like it was
wild to me
everywhere.
Like,
people were like, what are you doing? But like, you know,
I'm you stuck here. I'm in 2021 in my head. You all the way stuck back in 2010.
I'm like, what, like, whatever. The point is, it's cool that we've come a long way since then, and that, like, you know, like fantasy by people of color is getting major traction, and movie deals and things are happening, and, you know, hitting the list and staying on the list, and like that's so dope. Like, there's so much further to go, but there has been so much change in really such a short time, considering that publishing has labored under centuries of this bullshit of like the mostly white bookshelf, you know, and the lie that maintains. There, a lot of changes happen very fast, and there is a lot to go. But I am really inspired, you know, by you, Jay, and by a lot of the up and coming writers who are out there doing the thing. Like we all doing this, and it's changing. And then Big Freedia's next.
Yes.
I'm gonna do it.
No, I'm just saying. You heard it here first.
We're going to have our crawfish etouffee. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk. We're going to plot this novel out. Daniel, you bring your outline expertise because I've been known to pants.
Oh, I've been a pantser up until this very book that I'm working on right now.
No
I never outlined. This is the first book I have outlined.
Really? Wow. Do you like, how do you feel now that you've outlined one?
I actually love it. I used to hate it. I was like a hater about outlines because I felt like it robbed all the joy out of the like excitement of finding out what happens in the book. I would write to find out what happened, and I'd be in the middle of a scene and I'd be like, "Oh shit, we gotta kill this!" Like, but so I thought I wouldn't get that joy if I outlined, but come to find out, there's still lots of surprises ahead, even when you've outlined. And I mean, when I say I outlined and I did outlines of my outline. Like I went all the way.
Oh, you went all the way.
I mean, individual scenes had multiple outlines within them. Like it was bananas. And now I really like it. I'm a fan. I'll do it more. Writing comics has also gotten me outlining more because with a script, you know, you really need to do that. But anyway, we have questions. Let's take.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to see the questions.
Oh, I think Candace is gonna. Hey, there we go.
You all talk about how fun and innovative the process is. What are some of your favorite I'm creating practices and routines?
Oh, great question.
That is a good question. Mine always involves food, which I think we've established that.
Nothing wrong with that.
I have to be snacking when I'm writing. Like I just can't. My brain is just like, I'm not giving you words until you give me food. I would say I like to write sort of on a routine, like if my routine can vary per book, but I do tend to follow a rhythm per manuscript. And usually I'm either a morning writer or a night writer. And when I start like morning writing, that's sort of when my brain is in writing mode. And so I need to maintain that. So like I will sit down to write early in the morning, go about my day. And then when I go to bed, literally on my way to sleep, I daydream the next scene. I picture it in my head. Where do I need to start in the morning? And then I wake up and I go straight to the keys. And I try to maintain that because I guess kind of like exercise, which I know nothing about. When you exercise at the same time, like, you know, like your body is sort of like in the zone during that time. And so I feel like my writing brain works that way. Like, okay, we're writing in the morning and then, but I can switch it up. I can do a night writing session for a particular block of time, but it is tend to be consistent day to day.
That's extremely impressive. I am much too chaotic to pull that off, but I respect it. That's for me, it's like
people that are also following me around for food and things all the time.
Right. So. I'm like, you have kids. Like that makes it even harder because you don't know where they're going to be, when or how. But hey, if you can do it. For me, I do try to like really make it a point to like how do I say it? I wouldn't say that it's exactly a ritual, but I do try to make sure that I don't just like casually accidentally slide into writing and then halfway do it and don't or whatever. So like if I'm gonna write, and it's not even like I have to turn off social media or anything. I can actually go back and forth between writing and social media, and it helps me do it for longer. But I do need to decide like, okay, I'm done like answering emails and doing all this other bullshit. Now I'm really gonna write, and I try to mark that by listening to a song. Any song really that I love, and like having a cup of coffee and just taking my time. So I'm not like that frantic kind of energy or frenetic energy of like doing chores and doing bureaucracy. I hate that shit. And writing is the opposite of that, So sometimes too, what I'll do, what I find really helpful is I will just open up a Word doc and just write whatever, just do bullshit, just put down like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm worried about, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what I like. And it really opens up like the process for me. And then when I actually am working on the book, it's like I've already warmed up, and it really does help.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
For me, my process with going to the studio and making music, usually I'm on a schedule. I usually try to do night sessions where they're around the same time, but I'm also versatile. Well, sometimes I have to go in and do a morning session. Or I just like I prefer night sessions because I like my voice to be able to wake up in the morning. In the morning, I sound really, really hard. So I like for my voice to develop throughout the day. I'm gonna have to do a lot of whoas if I do it in the morning versus where if I do it in the evening, my voice has been playing around all day. And I usually, have a certain time midday, to do what I love to do. And it's just, that's just my process. And I need all the essentials when I'm in the studio. I like to smoke. I like to drink. So that's my little routine,
I love it.
That's fun. Do you go to the studio really, really late? I mean, I've heard that like studio sessions can run really late, and my brain literally shuts off at about 12. Nothing coming out of my mouth after midnight makes any kind of sense. Now that doesn't mean I don't stay up past midnight. I just can't produce anything worth anything late.
Yeah, so usually I'm on the road and on stage anytime between 11 and maybe 3 a.m. So I usually try to go right between 6, 7, 8 and be done by midnight, and then, back at it the next day. Just a time and my energy is the most high earlier versus late. If I've been up all day and trying to go to the studio at midnight, I'm not going to be no good in the studio.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Do y'all draw inspiration from people in your lives and bring them into your characters?
Of course.
Absolutely.
I definitely do. There's a lot of my community and home and my family in my book. Miss Leola, the character in Wings of Ebony, is basically my grandmother. In fact, she's named after my mother's mother, and she has the personality and the cooking skills of my dad's grandma or my dad's mother.
Yeah, and everybody in my book has been a part of my life. I mean, it's everybody who I grew up with and who I've came encounters through. So yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of a cliche, but I do feel like there is an aspect of character work that is a lot like gumbo, in that you just putting a lot of different people in there, a lot of different ingredients, and mixing it up, and something totally different than the sum of the parts comes out. Because for me, it's usually not like there's not like one character who is one person so much as like it's a little bit of this, it's a lot of me, my imagination, and a bunch of other folks. But the one person that is really in there for me in Shadow Shaper, I had a teacher in 7th grade, Mrs. Inez Middleton, who gave me a copy of Octavia Butler's book. Which one was it? Blood. It was a short story collection. And she changed my life by doing that, because Octavia Butler is just a writer that I really admire. And I think about her a lot, and she passed before I really got a chance to tell her that she changed my life. Like, we were cool, we were friends and everything, even after I graduated from high school. But it was like 10 years later I became a writer, or even thought about writing in a serious way. And so the kids go to Octavia Butler High School in the book, which is something I made up. And then Mrs. Middleton is like a neighbor of Sierra's and Shadow Shaper, who takes care of all the neighborhood kids. And that was just really like an important way for me to kind of honor her spirit and what she did.
I love that. I didn't know.
That's awesome.
I love that. I love that. That's dope. What about your music, Freedia? Does like your community, your friends, or people in your life influence your music?
Oh yeah, honey, do they? I express that, through my music. Whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm going through, that's a way for me to be able to express myself and to really say the things that I'm feeling, and also some of the things that I see in the community that I want to, point out and get people's attention on. So yeah, I'm learning even more of storytelling, becoming an author and just being able to set up the scene more now. Yeah, definitely being able to put more stuff into the music.
That's cool. That's cool. What advice do you have for older writers just getting started? I'm often surrounded by writers in the publishing world, and I kind of feel like I'm too old to get started.
You ain't too old, girl.
You sure ain't. You ain't too old to do nothing that you want to do in this world.
Absolutely not. And just as an example, I think it's Walter Mosley. I know it's Walter Mosley, but I think Walter Mosley started writing at like, I think 50, and he's like 65 now, and he has like 30 books out. That dude is a machine. And I mean that in the best way, but that's a common thing. That's not even you could Google it, but there's a lot of writers that started quote unquote late. But if they all do it late, it's not late, right? It's right on time. But it's not athletics.
And I don't think there's no time on writing. Right. There's no time on writing, no matter how old you get. If you have a story to tell and people want to read and listen, there's no time on writing.
That's right. I will say if you're writing for young people, that doesn't mean that it's too late either. It just means you got to really listen to those young people.
To the young people. You got to listen. You got to surround yourself by those young people.
Exactly. Because all of us writing for young people, with the exception of I think Chloe Gong, who wrote These Violent Delights, said she was like 19 when she wrote that book. But for the most part, most YA writers and middle grade writers are fully grown ass people. And we all here trying to figure out what the kids want and how to write for them and make them feel empowered. So, you join the club.
And I'll say this too, because I also felt like, I tried so many different careers and I was like, do I really want to pursue this too? And I just with me, it was sort of me giving into my fears. It was me looking for an excuse not to try, right. If I'm being transparent, right? I write characters for a living, so I'm always psychoanalyzing myself, what is my real motivation?
Right.
What is the actual goal? And so I think too, if part of it is there's this fear of trying it, first of all, check the normal box. We all of this is intimidating, I think, to all of us. This did not feel easy to any of us, I'm sure. But it's a matter of trying your hand at it. Type some words out. I think the cool thing about writing is that if you need to express yourself through words that way, when you give in to that desire, it is cathartic. It just feels good, even if it's not an amazing story, or even if it's not something you're ready to put out in front of the masses. There is something just so healing about just exploring thoughts and emotions and feelings through characters and words. And so if you have like Freedia was saying, if you have a story on your heart, just open that Word document and just let your fingers go. Just lean into it. That's your magic, I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to come on the screen too. And I will say that Alex, who posted that comment, is an amazing writer. I know her and her writing. So I would say and encourage you, Alex, to keep writing, because I think your writing's really good. So I want to encourage you as well. And also, it is time to end this amazing event.
Yes.
And thank you all so much for coming. I am going to do a plug for all of these books. You can order any and all of these books on our website at tubbyandcoos.com. You just click place an order. It's really easy, and you can order any of these books. We do have a few signed copies of Wings of Ebony left. And we're going to get signed copies as soon as I'm no longer sick from Daniel of Flood City. So please go ahead and order those books. And thank y'all so much. This was so amazing. And I just really enjoyed listening to this conversation.
Thank you. I can't wait to read both of them. I have yours too, Daniel.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm excited to read your book.
Yes, I can't wait.
This is the book we were celebrating, just to let y'all know. The cover is really good, Jay.
I love that cover.
I love that cover. It is
Taj Francis on Instagram. That's the artist.
I love it.
And I just got the comp for the sequel today. And woo!
Excited for that.
Y'all not ready.
It was great to talk to you guys.
Same here.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Freedia. So next time, crawfish etouffee, gumbo. We're gonna go all.
We're gonna do it all.
I'm gonna do arroz con pollo,
yes,
mojo, café.
Yes.
So good.
Thank you, guys. Much love, everybody.
Thank y'all for watching. Bye bye.
Bye bye.